From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mary Angish filling in for Mitch Wordley. It's Monday, January 29th, and here are today's headlines. Drawn-out battles over new housing developments are not uncommon in Vermont. When neighbors appeal and a project gets stalled, developers can rack up thousands of dollars in legal fees and see their construction costs rise with inflation. That can leave affordable housing developers asking for more public money to tide them over and leave less funding for other projects. State law lets any 10 people in a municipality launch an appeal against a project. Alex Farrell, Commissioner of the Department of Housing and Community Development, says that's too permissive.
You could imagine a lot of scenarios where if there's low-income housing coming into a community, 10 folks from the other side of town who can't even see it could get together and say, we want to band together to appeal this project.
Farrell supports a measure lawmakers have introduced to raise that threshold to 10% of a municipality's population. Vermont State Police arrested the top prosecutor in Addison County last week on suspicions that she drove drunk to a potential crime scene that police were processing. Addison County State's Attorney Eva Vakos will be arraigned on a DUI refusal charge on February 12th. State police in a press release said they smelled alcohol on Vakos when she arrived at the scene and that she was slurring her words. Vakos refused a field sobriety test and was arrested. She was taken to the state police barracks in New Haven, where she was processed, and received a citation to appear in court next month. Vakos did not respond to a request for comment on Friday. She was elected Addison County State's Attorney in 2022. Just over Vermont's border with Canada, one of the world's largest winter festivals is about to celebrate its 25th anniversary. The Lumière Festival in Montreal brings people together for concerts, culinary events, and outdoor ice skating. Morin Oxemarie is the Lumière Festival's Director of Cultural Events. On Vermont Edition, he gave a sneak peek of this year's musical lineup.
We need to dance to be not to be cold.
Right.
So we need something, more up tempo. So all those nights we're going to have like some country music, EDM, hip hop. It's built around parties every night outdoors.
The Lumière Festival runs February 29th through March 10th in Montreal. And 2 Vermonters have been named semifinalists for this year's James Beard Awards, one of the most prestigious culinary honors in the U.S. Burlington chefs Micah Tavelli of Paradiso Hi-Fi and Kara Chigazola-Tobin of Honey Road are both under consideration for Best Chef in the Northeast region. This is the 4th time Chigazola-Tobin has been named a semifinalist, and Tavelli's first. The cocktail bar at Bar Hill Distillery in Montpelier was also named a semifinalist for the nationwide Outstanding Bar category. The list of James Beard semifinalists will be whittled down to nominees April 3rd, and winners will be announced June 10th. Coming up, a Vermonter won a Newbery Honor for his middle grade book about a magical dog. My conversation with him after this.
Support for The Frequency comes from the Vermont Department of Liquor and Lottery, who manages Vermont's 802 Spirits liquor stores and contributes 100% of profits to the general fund, providing over $300 million to help benefit local communities.
Earlier this week, the American Library Association announced the Newbery Honors, one of the most prestigious prizes in children's literature. And one of them went to Calais author M.T. Anderson for his latest book called Elf Dog and Owlhead. The book follows a kid stuck in Vermont during a global pandemic who happens to befriend a magical dog, and adventures ensue. It's among a long list of kids' books by Anderson, but he's also written stories for readers of all ages, tackling topics ranging from internet connections that feed directly into your brain to life during the Bolshevik Revolution and Stalinist Russia. And M.T. Anderson joins me now. Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, you're no stranger to awards. National Book Award, Lifetime Achievement Award for Young Adult Literature. What does this week's Newbery Honor and the rest of the prizes mean to you?
For me, this is a very special award. I grew up reading these Newbery books and Caldecott books, and to be part of that legacy is just kind of incredible for me. So it was very, very, very moving to hear about this.
Can you talk about your personal experience during the pandemic with a dog that you admittedly originally disliked, and how that became the basis for this book.
Yeah, I mean, I had this dog who I'd originally gotten kind of against my will, but I had come to love over the years. And the pandemic started, and there I was, sort of trapped in a little 18th century house for 6 months with no companionship, but this dog. And the intense bonding is what led to this. So as the spring progressed, and I was isolated, we were spending hours a day walking, because what else are you going to do? And so we were walking, 5 or 6 miles a day. And I was just thinking, obviously, about like what it means, this connection between a human and an animal. It's such a beautiful thing. And you start to realize, wait a second, like, yeah, I might be directing which path we take or whatever. But at the same time, your sense of the world, of the natural world, is so heightened by having this animal that has senses that you don't have, and can kind of tell that there are features of the forest that are hidden from you. So I started to think about, like, what would it be like to have a dog that literally can reveal to this boy kind of the hidden worlds that lie around him in the forests of Vermont. It's a story about, like, this dog that has escaped from a kingdom under the mountain and starts to lead this boy sort of to see these sort of hidden sights and gems and dangers in the forest that he'd never known were there. But at the same time, that dog's original owners from under the mountain are still watching out for it and trying to kind of get it back.
Well, you mentioned your 18th century house. I'm going to ask you a question about that in a sec, too. But when you're writing for younger readers, some people are like terrified of children, and especially teenagers, right? But it seems like you run toward them when you're writing for younger readers. How do you do that? How do you capture that their interest?
I think that a lot of it is that writers for children tend to be people who still are children in part of themselves. And so, I'm not sure I get along with children any better or worse than anyone else. There's some of them are great. There's some of them are jerks. But but I definitely know that I still have that strong presence of a child within me. And in this book in particular, I could kind of feel the 10 or 11-year-old me sort of directing which way the book should be written. I would write the book after going on these walks. So it was sort of like I ended up being sort of the boy and his dog, falling into the role of the character himself as I walked.
Yeah, so cool. And then how do you pivot then to writing for adult readers when you're working on a different sort of project? Or is it all kind of seamless?
I mean, I also have part of me that is an adult and pays a mortgage, and and occasionally I want to write a book about someone who has a driver's license.
When Elf Dog and Owlhead came out last spring, you were a guest on Vermont Edition and spoke with host Michaela Lefrak about your book. And you said when you started renovating your 18th century supposedly haunted house that you live in, you found like a collection of letters that were written by the kids in the house to like the ghosts that were there.
Yeah, I love the fact that this little girl, as she was then, is writing a letter to this ghost about, dear ghost, I love you. I think you are cute. In a way, what she's doing is producing a ghost that is palatable to her, a ghost that won't be as frightening to her. I love the fact that it's soothing the ghost and herself at the same time. That's, I think, one of the things about writing for kids. The ways that they're interacting with a world that is still in some ways magical. Because it, like the cause and effect that you get used to as an adult, they don't necessarily make sense yet when you're a kid. It's that beautiful moment where you can be logical about things that are entirely illogical. That's the kind of the magical moment of childhood that I love to write about.
Yeah, you got to build your own world so that it's safe for you to live in.
Right.
I understand you write to push the limits of your readers' intelligence, especially the younger ones. Do you have any examples of what that might look like on the page of one of your books?
Well, so for example, some books I wrote set in the time of the American Revolution. So the Octavian Nothing books, which are sort of Gothic novels set at the time of the Revolution. In those instances, I really wanted to use language that looked authentically 18th century. And in fact, more than adults, kids are fine with saying, oh, well, huckabuck in this sentence is clearly some kind of fabric. I don't really care what kind of fabric it is. We're moving on. You know what I mean? Whereas adults could get there like, wait, I don't know what this thing is. And how can this author believe that I'm going to know this obscure 18th century fabric? You know, and I think that there is a flexibility to child readers, you know, that's really wonderful. I was just talking yesterday with an editor about how we reread books that we'd loved as children. And in some cases, we realized, wait, it's like the spaciousness of the child's imagination that made this so wonderful. Like the words on the page are really not stellar, but what the child brings to it is magical. And that's, I think, an incredible thing about writing for young readers.
What's in store next for your readers?
Well, my first novel for adults will be coming out, or solely for adults, will be coming out this summer. And it is called Nicked. Pantheon is putting it out, and it's a historical novel based on a real event where a bunch of Italian sailors went and actually stole the corpse of St. Nicholas, like Santa Claus. They stole him from southern Turkey and took him back to Italy with them. So this is a novelized version of those events turned into kind of like a heist novel. So that's coming out this summer.
Oh, so cool. That's Vermont-based author M.T. Anderson, whose middle grade novel, Elf Dog and Owlhead, with illustrations from Junyi Wu, was just awarded the Newbery Honor. Thank you so much for your time this morning. It's been awesome chatting with you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Courtney Berlin, Liam Elder-Connors, Michaela Lafrac, and Adia Golston. Our executive producer is Kevin Trevelyan, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mary Angish. Talk to you later.
Every episode of Brave Little State begins with a question about Vermont that's been submitted and voted on by listeners like you. What happened to all the restaurant workers? What's the deal with Vermont's fire towers? Why do people like the band Phish? Follow Brave Little State wherever you get podcasts. From Vermont Public, part of the NPR network.